Hello friends, and welcome into my craft room. Today's episode is a special one packed full of ideas and new products from the Dollar Tree. Alright, now let's get crafting. This sign is super trendy right now, and I know a lot of you are trying to get your hands on it. If it hasn't been in your store yet, just make sure you just keep checking back. They're coming to all the stores because this is a $1.25 sign. I'm also going to take one of these other wood signs from years past. They bring them back every year. This cute darling wood pumpkin decor piece, and then we are going to just remove the bow, we're going to remove the twine, and we're going to come in with, well, I'm going to use this. You can paint it whatever color you honestly want. I'm going to go with a really beautiful creamy orange color. I'm going to paint it all over the front and back because Heidi likes a good backside being finished. I like things to look store-bought here on my channel. I don't like things to look, you know, rough on the backside. I just think finish, you know, the job and make it look pretty on both sides. Now, when it comes to working with scrapbook paper, I know that there are a lot of different ways to do it, but this is how I do it. So you can cut it, or you can take your finger and just trace and press along the side. That's going to give you the initial outline. And because I like a farmhouse look, I'm going to come back in with some sandpaper once I glue it down and sand off the extra edges that I don't want. If you want it to be more precise, you could always crease it down very, very nicely, as I did for the first step of this, and then, you know, just come in with your scissors and cut right along that line. But I like my edges to be rough because I like that farmhouse distress look. Not too heavy on the rustic side, but lightly. So you can see that I got all three pieces covered with scrapbook paper, and now I'm going to come up at the top, and I thought it would be really pretty to add this texture of the twine on the stem of the pumpkin. And we're going to just wrap around until you have the whole thing covered. Up at the top is the trickiest part. That's why I'm showing you here. I put glue and I just take my time getting the glue to adhere, and once you go around a couple times, it builds it up so it'll stay in place, and then you just glue down the last bit of it. Now on the back, we're going to bring these two together to really elevate that beautiful pumpkin pie sign with the pumpkin. I just thought these two were begging to be together, and it really elevates the look of this sign that is just so pretty. So you can see here that I'm reinforcing my twine with some popsicle stick, and I made a handle, and the backside looks so clean and finished. And I just think, you know, take the extra time to just paint the backside, make it look nice, maybe cover with fabric. That's just me. I like to show everyone here on my channel that it is possible to have a nice backside to your projects. And then to finish, we're going to add on a couple of beautiful bows and a little button. Now, I could not believe I found this teapot. I've been looking for something like this forever. And so I started by just simply taking off the tape, got off any sticky residue. This packaging tape actually did a number on it, so I had to use some Goo Gone to get it off. But once I took everything off and made sure the surface was clean, I took it outside and spray painted this beautiful orange color. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to just sketch on a cute little face that I think will be so happy and friendly for my home for this fall season. Now I'm going to come in with my paintbrush. I'm using an angled paintbrush, and I'm going to just take my time painting on this face because there's no rush. I really do love painting. It feels so therapeutic for me to use my hands and to take my time painting. So I'm just going around the corners. And I will say, because this angle is right on certain lines of the smile, that part was a little tricky. I kept going over my pencil line and I kept having to trim it up where I made little mistakes, but I had so much fun painting this on. And once it was all dry, I styled it in my kitchen for a darling look. Now these letters are actually from Hobby Lobby, but I got them half off where they were $1 for each letter. I loved how thick and chunky they were, and I wanted to include it in this video. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some long paint stirrer sticks, and I'm just basically measuring out the length of these letters, and I'm going to make sure that they are all nestled on the right length of it, creating my cut marks so that I can cut them down to size with my miter box that I keep here in my craft room. Once I've got my marks, I'm going to go ahead and cut them down to size, and I'm doing 2 of each of the sides. You can see over to the left I've got 2 of those smaller ones and 2 of the longer ones, and we're going to sandwich them all together to make them be the perfect length so it looks store-bought and finished at the end. Now normally I would not just glue down wood to wood like this, because normally I like to use some type of a support in there, but I was actually impressed how well this glued on. I was tugging at it and dropping it and making sure that it was nice and secure, and it actually stayed on, because I'm going to show you what I do to only use hot glue. I know a lot of you are afraid to use the power tools because they can be intimidating. I was intimidated too once upon a time, and I wanted to make sure I included all of you. So if you want to use your staple gun, you can. If you just want to use hot glue, this is the project for you to give it a try. So here I am, I'm just gluing in all of these pieces. You can see that I put the shorter piece on the long one that doesn't have letters. Then I glued down the long piece that has the letters, and now I'm bringing in that shorter piece that doesn't have letters. Now this is where I made it stronger. On the back side, I'm adding a nice dollop of hot glue behind each letter to strengthen it. And you can see here, I'm being really rough with it. I am sanding these down to give it that farmhouse look, and they held really nicely. And this is the completed look. This project is so simple to recreate. I'm going to take a pack of painter sticks. There's 10 inside the pack that you can pick up at Home Depot, and it's $1. I'm going to put 8 of them side by side. On the last 2, I'm going to measure it as the length of all of these 8, and then I'm going to cut it down to size with my miter box and my saw. I'll link it down below. I get asked all the time. This is my favorite one that I have. I'm going to just add on some hot glue and some wood glue, little dots, and I'm just going to add that all together to make sure it bonds well. And I'm not going to use any staple guns on this because I feel like the hold was well enough. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it a taupey tan color, and now I'm going to add on some rub-ons. Now if you have a vinyl cutting machine, you can totally use that too, but this makes just such a cute, easy sign that you can recreate and customize to whatever you want. And I want you to see that you don't have to have a vinyl cutting machine. You can hand paint the letters like I do a lot here on my channel, or you can use stickers, or you can use rub-ons. There's so many options out there if you don't have a vinyl cutting machine in your budget. I know that a lot of times it's what crafters show here on YouTube, and I just want you to know that if you don't have one, that's okay. You can still be creative without spending a ton of money. Then at the very top, because there's no place like home, I put my little apostrophe up at the top, and now I'm going to add some greenery. I'm just going to take some boxwood, wrap a little bit of a gingham ribbon around it to hold those in place, glue that onto my sign, and then I'm going to add on a really beautiful white sunflower. I thought that this looked so pretty and can be used more than just for one particular season. You can use it year round. Then I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile, one of my other favorite tools that I use a lot here on my channel, and I'm going to punch out 2 holes at the very top so that way we can have a beautiful ribbon that will allow it to be able to be hung up somewhere in your home. So I've decided to have my knots be on the outside because I just thought that that looked really cute. Once I've got my ribbon at the top, it's ready to be hung up and displayed. This DIY is so much fun. It can be a little advanced, but I'm going to try to slow all the steps down to show you everything. I'm going to start with this scrap piece of fabric that I have here, and I'm only going to glue about 3 inches up on each side, and then I'm going to gather in the bottom, add in some hot glue, take some yarn, wrap it around, and tie a knot. I'm going to then repeat the same thing on the other side because we're bundling up the ends. Think of almost like a lumbar pillow. That's kind of what we're doing at this point, but we're going to end up filling it and stuffing it and turning it into the most darling stand-up pumpkin decor that is so whimsical and just happy. When I look at it, I just get so happy. So now what I'm going to do, now that I flipped it inside out, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the sides just a little bit more on the bottom part, because I'm going to go ahead and open it up and I'm going to drop in some of these glass beads. This is what's going to help it stand up and be able to be sturdy at the bottom. So you can see here that that's where the bundle is that I gathered together, and then I put in all of those glass beads, and now I'm moving on to starting to stuff it. We want to make sure that it's stuffed really well, but not too full that you can't do the next step. Enough to be able to shift around the batting that's on the inside. Then I start to lessen the opening by gluing the sides up a little bit more, stuff in the last of that stuffing, and then I start to kind of roll it and play with it, and you can see there that I still have it not fully sealed yet. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom part of my pumpkin snowman body, and I'm going to twist it really tight and then tie a knot. Then once I've got that knot in place, I went ahead and closed the last of the hole, making sure that I had enough batting in there. That's why I wanted to keep it open until I got the bottom part done on the pumpkin. And I'm going to go ahead and find where his middle of his body is going to be and his head. So again, I'm going to just keep playing with it until I find a nice middle spot for me to squeeze and tie on that yarn nice and tight. And you can see at this point I've got my 3 different sections. At this point you're going to massage it to make sure everything looks nice and round or lumpy, whichever you want. You could make a really lumpy pumpkin. And then what I do here is I actually add some hot glue all around inside that yarn where I tied it, and I'm going to compress the fabric down. So at this point it's going to squish the pumpkin, and this is where he's really going to take life and start to look like a little pumpkin. You can see right here as I'm holding it together and letting the hot glue dry, it looks like the 3 sections of a snowman pumpkin. Then at this point we could start embellishing it. I put a branch up at the top. I added on some buttons for his tummy, and then because it's a little pumpkin snowman, I'm going to go ahead and use some black felt and my tiny little scissors to go ahead and cut out a smile and a triangle for his nose, and I'm going to glue that on into place, making sure they're nice and secure. And then I'm going to move on to adding on a scarf. I'm going to go with this black and white buffalo check, and I always like to manipulate where my scarf is going because I want to be able to see the buttons. I don't want it to be flapping in a weird place. This is also a really great time to be able to cover up anything that maybe you don't want to see, like some hot glue that where the seam is. I'm going to just pull that over and just play with it until I get it to where I want it to be. Then I'm going to add on some button eyes. And at this point, he is just such a cute little snowman pumpkin. And I'm going to come into the arm area, cut a tiny little hole, and then wiggle in some sticks. The best way to do this is just a tiny hole, work in that stick, and then add some hot glue to let the glue wrap around the arm and pleat around the fabric so it really holds it into place. Then I thought I would embellish it just a little bit more. You could stop there or go a little further, which is what I love to do here on my channel. I decided to add on a little green heart on the side, because this particular inspiration with the green heart was something that I had seen on Pinterest that someone had made a long time ago. I thought that would be so cute to add that onto this little pumpkin. And then up at the top, I'm going to add on the same fabric for the heart, but I'm making a little leaf up at the top, and I'm going to glue it up there. as well as I'm going to bring in another leaf that I had left over from a pick because I saw it sitting there and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use that too. And I like the contrast between the two different green tones. So I just cut off one of the leaves and just pinched it into place. And then right at the joint of those leaves that come onto the branch, the top of the pumpkin, the stem, I'm going to go ahead and add on some star buttons because I just love these star buttons. And then the last is to just pick off any hot glue and he's ready to be displayed. As I was walking around my thrift store, I came across this clock and I was so giddy. There was actually a woman shopping in front of me and I was praying and hoping that she did not pick it up. She thankfully passed it up and I grabbed it the second I could get my hands on it because I knew that I could update it and give it life in our home. So I'm just going to preserve the metal gold ring around it. I liked that. I didn't want to get any spray paint on that. I'm just going to cover that up with a few strips of painter's tape and making sure that the seal is not touching onto the wood. I'm also going to cover up the very inside of the bottom framing of this clock because I want to make sure I'm preserving the area where the batteries are inserted into it, as well as the back side, because later on I found out I had no idea this clock actually chimes as well. I took it outside and gave it 2 lovely coats of spray paint with this taupey gray color. I love how it turned out. Now, I could leave it like this, but you all know that I love a little farmhouse here on my channel, so I'm just going to lightly sand the edges to really show all of the detail work on this clock. It's amazing how just spray painting it really brightened up this clock, and I love how it's styled on my shelves now. I always wanted to be a mom, and I love my role that I get to play in my kids' lives. Now, I'm sure that you could probably agree that there's something that you say to your kids all the time. One of the things I say to my kids all the time is, you can do hard things. I started thinking about that, and that I wanted my kids more than just to hear me saying it, but to actually see it in our home. So this next DIY is inspired by a quote that I say to my kids all the time. I'm going to share how I layered this look to be able to create your own sign without using a vinyl cutting machine where it costs just pennies to do it. They have all kinds of these metal trays at your thrift stores, at least they do at mine. And I picked this one up for 99 cents and I took it outside and first gave it a coat of white spray paint. Once I had that on, now I'm gonna go and pull out all of my Dollar Tree stickers. You can see that I'm always picking from these, and funny enough, the H's are always the one that's missing on every single one. I apparently use the H a lot, which makes sense because my name is Heidi, so who knows, maybe it's because I'm just drawn to that letter. So what I'm going to do, I'm using my ruler and I'm just going to line up to make sure that my letters are nice and straight, and I do stick them to my hand first to take a little bit of that adhesive stickiness away from it, because you don't want it to peel up any of the first layer of that spray paint. And I will recommend make sure it's dried really well before you start sticking down any stickers, because that can also pick up the paint. But I love the idea of making a sign that is customized to something that you say to your kids all the time. Something that's uplifting and positive, something that lets them know that you love them, and hanging that sign up in your home. So just in case you're not around to tell them when they need that message, they can see it hanging up somewhere in your home. So for me, I tell my kids all the time, you can do hard things. I want them to know that they need to push themselves and to not give up, to believe in themselves, that God always has a plan and we can always try our hardest. I want my kids to always know that I believe in them, and I want them to believe in themselves. So at this point, I peeled away my stickers, and now I'm just coming in with some brown, and I'm going to create a couple of rust spots, because I'm actually going to be hanging this up eventually in my boys' room. I have a little mini makeover I'm doing for them soon. And now I'm just going to sand it and get it all roughed up, because I wanted to have that farmhouse industrial sign look to it. So I'm just taking my sandpaper and sanding on some spots here and there. And now I'm going to use my crocodile punch 2 holes up at the top. I love this tool. I'll link it down below, and any of the other tools you see here in this video, but it goes through metal like butter. It's great for hands that have arthritis. And now I'm going to take one of these garden chains that you can pick up at the Dollar Tree around springtime. I always pick up a bunch when I see them, and then I just hold on to them because I use them a lot on my crafts. I took apart the chain, and I'm only going to be using one of the strands, but I'm also going to take one of the extra hooks and add that to the bottom of the chain so it has a nice way to hang it up. And look at this transformation from this outdated sign to this really cool farmhouse industrial sign. I hope that you are feeling inspired so far. Please do give this video a thumbs up. It really lets me know that you're enjoying the contents of this video. And if you haven't already and you're new to my channel, I hope that you will consider clicking that subscribe button and joining my friends here on this craft channel, where I post weekly with lots of fun new ideas. We are going to be using the largest wreath form size that we can find, and I believe it's a 16 or 18 inch from the Dollar Tree, and a whole bunch of different florals. Now, almost every single thing came from the Dollar Tree except for this yellow flower, this little tiny wispy yellow flower. Everything else came from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to start by popping off all of these whimsy flowers, these yellow ones, because I like to have something light and airy on the outer and inner part of my ring, and I'm going to show you what I mean. I start by first layering on something very dainty and flowy on the outside. And I forgot to mention, I did wrap around a ribbon. I just coiled it all around and glued it into place. Once I have that whimsy wispy flower on the outside, I'm now going to come in with a very creamy carnation. And again, this is from the Dollar Tree, these creamy carnations. I'm just going to glue those sporadically around. And then I'm going to come in, these flowers were put out for the fall 2021 season. I love that they had that burgundy color inside, so I added some of those. Then I'm going to come in with this burlap orange flower. I thought that this was just so beautiful, and it added in that beautiful fall orangey color. Now I'm adding in some burlap hydrangea. I thought that this was really beautiful, and you can see at this point that it's really starting to come to life. And you could technically stop at these colors, but I'm going to continue to take it a little bit further because I love playing with colors and I love trying to get that look in my house. So once I've got those hydrangeas in there, I'm now going to come in with my leaves. These leaves, I loved the color of them. I loved that it had a yellow undertone to them. It looked very much so like a leaf you would see at the fall time. So I'm going to fill in some of those areas. I think the thing with wreaths, for me personally in particular, I like to make sure that the color is well balanced like you would see in a garden. I want everything to look natural and beautiful as much as possible. Now this is where the surprise color is going to come in, and it's going to match that burgundy in those flowers we put on earlier. I'm going to add on 3 little clusters, and each one has 3 flowers within those clusters of this red peony flower. And now I'm going to add on the white sunflowers. There's a large and a small one that they have at the Dollar Tree, and it really just starts to bring everything to life. Now make sure you always remove all of your hot glue gun strings, because that is a thing. It makes it look like it was homemade. When you remove them, it makes it look more high-end. Now I'm going to come in with some pine cones and some little grains. I think that these are like wheat sticks. I'm not sure. Again, the Dollar Tree. And then the last flower I'm going to be adding on is this leaf that comes off of the pick that has pumpkins. You can see some of the pumpkins are in there too, and this leaf. So I'm just going to tuck all of that down in there and really just make sure that each thing has its own shiny moment. And at the very last finishing touch, I'm going to add on a beautiful bow off to the side that won't compete with the colors, and I love how it turned out. This is my favorite sign. The Dollar Tree came out this fall season, and I wanted to turn it into something really special since it's such a large sign. I thought it would be so fun to turn it into an advent calendar with pockets. Now, friends, I want to share my updated opinion on these miter shears. I will tell you, if you're working with something that has a rounded or beveled edge, it's easier to cut with them versus something that's flat like a painter stick. Good luck. They do not cut through that. I just don't really particularly like them for that. But for dowels, it does do a good job. So I just wanted to give that update on that. So I cut this dowel down to size and I put some glue on some fabric. And I'm going to show the measurements for this in just a moment. But I'm getting a very large piece of felt and a piece of drop cloth. And I wanted to have these two different tones layered. And you can see here that I'm gluing them all together. You could sew this. I definitely recommend it if you like to sew, but I know a lot of you on here are not seamstress and you don't sew. So if you do, make sure you get a brayer roller, and this is going to allow you to be able to smooth out that hot glue. Now I wanted some scallops on the side of my advent calendar, so I'm just using a large jumbo size tongue depressor stick that I get from like Walmart. I traced some scallops and then cut them out with some small fussy cutting scissors. This is honestly the best to be able to get into these tight spaces using a small pair of scissors. And I just like how the scallop looked. You don't have to do the scallop, but I personally loved it. Now I'm going to glue on this sign, and you can see that I am using quite a bit of glue. And I want to make sure that I'm using quite a bit of the fabric at the top to really glue on there so that the weight of the things in the pockets are not going to separate the fabric from the sign over time. And now I'm going to just use that brayer again. I'm going to roll all over it. I'll make sure I link that down below. Now here's the measurement for the fabric. For the yellow, I used a thick felt, and then the tan is actually a drop cloth. Now I'm figuring out the sizing I need for my pockets to fit across the width and the length of this advent calendar. I went ahead and just put down my measurements again. Now I'm moving on to cutting my pockets, and you can see here for my cotton fabric that has this pattern on it. A lot of people use this for quilting. I'm going to go ahead and fold it over and double it up. So if I'm doubling up the fabric, I'm going to use a 9 by 4.5 inch. If not, if it's just a solo piece of fabric, I'm using the 4.5 by 4.5. I thought I would also share my rotating cutting mat. It's a self-healing cutting mat, and you can use it for sewing or crafting. I love this thing. It is my new favorite. So I'm going to link that down below, as well as the brayer tool. Now that my pockets are all cut out and I've decided what I want each pattern to be in what place, I'm going to go ahead and start working on my pockets. Now for the really thin fabric, like this really thin green fabric, I'm taking some of that drop cloth and just lining the inside of it with some of the drop cloth, just a 4.5 by 4.5 square. And then now I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. I put something right in the place of where the insert of the pocket would be, just so that I can create a little bit of an opening, and it's not going to have it where it's a perfect square laying on the actual drop cloth. So once I've got all of those glued down, because you want to be able to put your hand inside there without struggling, I then moved on to the tags. The tags are just little garden stakes that you can get in the floral section at the Dollar Tree. And I went ahead and popped off those sticks from the back, and I'm just hand painting on all of the numbers 1 through 16. I went and I looked at the calendar, and I wanted each pocket to represent a Saturday throughout all of the fall season. So every Saturday we can do something fun like go pick out pumpkins, or we can, work on picking out our costumes, and each little pocket will have some type of a treat that will be also inside of it for my kids. I love advent calendars. I cannot say enough about them because I just feel like it gets everyone so excited for the season, no matter what it is, for Christmas, for fall, for spring. I'm a big fan of them. So now I'm coming in with a bunch of my buttons. I collect buttons. I love buttons. I have always loved buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue a whole bunch of those all over, and the hot glue does a great trick. I'm also at the top where the hole originally was for the twine of this sign. I'm going to add on some of these half wood beads because I just thought it made it look more farmhouse, and it really cleaned up the top. And to finish off the project, I flipped it over, I put down some twine, and then to reinforce the twine, I'm taking a jumbo popsicle stick and I'm just going to put some glue. I cut it down to size and put that right on top to help reinforce it and make it stronger. Metal frame, and you can do it with wood too, as long as it's flat. Some of these measuring ruler sticks, and I'm going to link the ones I purchased. I actually bought a huge box of them from Amazon. I'll link that down below, but you can get all kinds of rulers that are at the Dollar Tree. And then what we're going to be doing is we are going to be making an adorable back to school frame. Now friends, here I am with these miter shears. Oh, when I'm using them with popsicle sticks, I like them. But when I'm using them with anything else, I don't like them. They do take some time. You can see I was cutting on one side, cutting on the other side. If you go back and forth a couple times, you will get a good cut. But I honestly feel like anybody who has arthritis, avoid these. If your hands are fine, go for it. Have a good time with this tool. So you can see here, I'm going to clamp down one way, I'm going to flip it the other way, and I'm going to clamp it again. And as I was saying, it takes some force to cut with them. And it is really cool when it does. I enjoy it. But I don't want to ever mislead anyone in thinking that these tools are easy to use, this particular miter shear. So once I had all of my cuts and measurements done, I'm coming in with some E6000, and I'm going to come in with some hot glue for a short-term, long-term hold, because wood being glued against metal is not necessarily going to hold with only one glue. So the reason why I wanted to feature this project in this video is that teachers can't always have big gifts given to them because they don't have a lot of room in their classrooms. So a really adorable project to do for teachers is if on the first day of school you can get a picture of all the students together and put it into one frame and put the date of the year that those kids were all in that class together. Teachers love pictures like this to be able to put in their classroom on a shelf or to adhere them to a wall with some foam tape, and they can document all the years that they've taught at that school, which is really a fun and thoughtful gift for the teachers to be able to document that year with those kids. And it's really fun too if they've been at the school for a long time, kids come back and they can still see their picture and their class year on the wall. And also, it's such a cute gift to have in your own home for your kids. We all take this picture of our kids' first day back to school or last day of school. What do we do with those pictures? They just stay on our camera. So I wanted to make a picture frame for my own home. I actually have some decor I put out when we're going back to school to get my kids excited for the fall season. And I'm just simply going to insert their picture, and on the top I'm going to decorate a little apple with a skewer stick to make sure it's glued on there nice and strong. I'm going to add some ribbon and a little date at the very top, and this makes the sweetest frame to put out for the school season. I'm always amazed at how many parents still shop at other stores for school supplies because the Dollar Tree truly carries all of the school supplies that you can get on a fraction of a cost that other stores are charging. They even have name brand Crayola products. Now you can see here, this is their off brand, which is their Jot brand, but they carry all the name brand supplies in here as well, from pens to crayons to all sorts of different things that you could possibly be needing, and you will save yourself so much money. I know this next idea is really popular on Pinterest, and I wanted to give it a try because my church was actually collecting a whole bunch of school supplies for an organization. So I decided to make myself, for this donation that our family is going to be doing towards our church, is a giant school supply cake, because they are so fun to make and they are so easy to make and they just are so adorable. I don't know how else to say it. You can see here that my base is a charger plate, a large Tupperware type bowl, a cup, and now I'm just coming in with all the supplies and rubber banding them on. This is the big trick, is that you don't want to glue any of the supplies to the actual containers. Using rubber bands is the best way to do it, and you can conceal the rubber bands by taking some ribbon, tying it around it, and simply tying a knot. And also, when I was adhering all of my Tupperware containers together, I was using E6000 and hot glue. You could avoid doing that and just going with the hot glue, and that can be peeled off. But honestly, I really wanted it to lock in and not have any problems. So I'm using that E6000 in there, and you can see here now I'm working on the bottom layer. I went all around the bowl with a bunch of pins, came in with 3 rubber bands, and now I'm going to put glue all the way around the base to hide those rubber bands. It is such a fun project to be able to build up all these different layers, and you just keep simply adding on those rubber bands, tucking the things in there. The more rubber bands you add around those items, the stronger you'll be able to hold it in there and not have anything slip or fall. Now, if a rubber band's kind of too tight, just make sure you kind of spread it and stretch it a little bit. It'll warm up that elastic in there. It'll let you stretch it a little bit further. And then I'm now going to just tie on another bow down at the bottom of the layer of the cake. And then up at the very top, I was thinking, what do I want to put in there? I could have put some tissue paper. I could have put a lot of different things. And then I thought it would be so cute because I have these faux apples on hand. I picked these apples up from Amazon, but you can get them at the Dollar Tree as well. So I'm going to just take one of these dowel sticks and cut it down, and I'm going to skewer on 2 apples. I thought a red apple and a green apple would be so adorable to put at the very top of this cake. So once I've got those skewered on and glued into place, I will say I wish that I had done this topper before I put the pencils on. So just keep that in mind if you're going to build this yourself. Whatever you're doing for the topper, it is much easier to get the topper on first. But you can see that I'm pushing my hot glue down in there, and I actually created a hole at the bottom of the cup, or better yet at the top of my cake. And I'm inserting that dowel stick into that hole with that hot glue, and I'm putting in some of this shriveled up little papers to complete the look of this darling cake. I had so much fun creating all of these projects for you here in this episode. I truly always hope that this inspires you to get in your own craft spaces and make things with your own hands for this upcoming fall season. Thank you so much for being a friend and clicking this video and returning over the many years I've been here on YouTube. I'm so grateful for all of you. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you're a newcomer. I'm so glad that you came to stop by and visit today. And until the next episode, bye friends.